Hey guys, I'm back and let's go to work here. We're going to be talking about what happens to startups during recessions. Now, it's more likelier than not that we're on that glide path, so might as well talk about it. Cue the intro. So guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today, like I said before, we're going to be going over when sometimes, the world or at least the US are going through the dark times. And that is called a recession. And without laying it out, it's find right here. And it's happened a few times in history. The worst time being what was called the Great Recession and so on and so forth. So it's already hard enough to get startups off the ground, but throwing in a wrench called a recession is just going to make it all the much harder. And you have layers to this, right? Things in the startup ecosystem could be going well, but globally not. And this could be impacting things internally. The most popular example is COVID-19, right? This caused an internal problem with startups, right? Where things were looking optimistic afterwards and people were inflating valuations and pumping a lot of money into startups, which caused I think 3,000 startups worldwide to actually close. So with that being said, this is just a complicated issue that we're gonna break this down. Right now, here's the thing. With recessions, right? Startup by nature, to get them going is already gonna be, high, very stringent budgeting, capital intensive for some industries, and recessions make it that much harder. Now, with that being said, right, we're gonna go over what's called cash flow crisis, which is the lifeline for startups. So you can actually define this in a metric that I like using called runway, right? The amount of cash that you essentially could survive with, quantified over months until you drop dead. Now, this creates a lot of cost-saving measures, right? When you add a recession, because the global GDP is not good, right? Inflation's probably higher, and all these other things, right? It might be harder to get customers because customers need what's called buying power. And during a recession, this alters the decisions that customers actually make in order to buy your products, essentially. When the economy is better, they'd be willing to buy a lot more regardless of who you are. So this leads to reducing marketing spend, which leads to your customer acquisition. This results in layoffs, right? Unfortunately. Or scaling back product development, which could be the next kick-ass product that you can possibly make, right? And slows down growth and development. When the global market is behind, it is hard for you to get ahead. So fundraising drop, right? And this is when I come in, right? A lot of companies tend to believe that if they just keep raising venture capital, it can keep them afloat. This isn't necessarily the thing. LPs invest in venture capital firms, and venture capital firms invest in startups. When these LPs scale back from the venture capital firms, well, it gets a little bit more stringent for venture capital firms in order to make smart investment decisions, right? What you're going to see is a lot of down rounds, right? Raising rounds at a lower valuation, or a bridge round, which is a bridge to financing to just keep you afloat and not progress you further, right? So startups might actually compensate for this. They might end up giving up more equity in the beginning, which is generally a bad idea on how you spin it in order to kind of get more capital, in order to stay afloat, right? So this is like walking on a financial tightrope. So guys, while I get bleak, right, let's talk about a brief success story about, has there ever been a company that's actually, had a recession that benefited them? And you probably know what I'm going to talk about, but companies like Uber, Airbnb, Slack were actually born during economic turndowns, and a lot of economists and a lot of entrepreneurs, they label this because it teaches you to be more lean, more efficient, and more effective with the capital that you actually have, right? So here is what I've read, right, from a lot of successful entrepreneurs with the companies that I just mentioned and all these other things. Startups tend to stay on focusing on cash flow, keeping a close eye on finances, and cutting unnecessary expenses and prioritizing revenue generating activities. I read this cool book one time called The Lean Startup, and that's essentially what they advise all startups to do. Bootstrap if possible, because it could put you in a bad situation later. Bootstrapping is pretty much making money, then just taking that money and reinvesting it. What if the fact that you have to generate returns back to your investor happens during the time of a recession? That kind of sucks. So a lot of people avoid by doing that type of stuff. Adapting and pivoting, right? Being ready to pivot your business model and product offerings to changing market demands. Doubling down on the customer relationship. If you have a good customer base, a good brand, and all these other things, they will legit be your ride or die throughout all of these other, global economic situations. And staying lean, focusing on things that drives growth and not having too much excess waste. And guys, this was a little bit on the shorter side, but if you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button, and we're back at it again. See you guys later.